Wonderful. So he was about 2.5 feet tall, kind of small, actually. And he could be about 6 feet long, right? And his diet was also other dinosaurs, right? But probably maybe some baby dinosaurs, right? Because he's kind of tiny, right? He's a turkey-sized velociraptor, right? Turkey-sized. So smaller than us, right? That's right. Do we know any other dinosaurs? What about the Triceratops, right? Triceratops, which has, it means 3-horned face because he's got 3 horns. Three, right? Now, he could be about 9.5 feet tall and about 26 to 30 feet long and weighs 6 to 10 tons, right? And he also was an herbivore. He ate a lot of plants, right? Or our friend, maybe the iguanodon, right? He's pretty cool. Or maybe the megalosaurus. We know some of these, right? We recognize these guys. Now, this guy could weigh about 2,000 pounds. Pretty impressive. 12 feet high, right? He's pretty scary, huh? He means great lizard, right? Kind of looks like one, just much bigger, right? There are so many different kinds of dinosaurs. Now, dinosaurs no longer walk the earth. So how do scientists know what they looked like and how many species there might have been? So what do you guys think? How do you think that our friends, the scientists, know how dinosaurs lived, where they lived, what they did, how they ate, what they looked like? What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Jacob. Fossils.
Fossils, that's right. Now, what is, does anyone know what a fossil is? What exactly is a fossil?
A bone.
It can be a bone, right? There's other things about fossils, right? Fossils don't have to be necessarily a bone, right? And we're going to watch a little video, actually, about fossils and kind of what they are, right? But first, we're going to talk a little more about our dinosaur friends, right? So scientists and archaeologists, who are scientists that specialize in the finding of fossils and ancient matter, right? Things that lived long ago. They dig and they look for evidence that dinosaurs might have lived there, right? So things that they might find might be helpful are fossils and also some other things, maybe some bones, right? Some other kinds of prehistoric organisms that might have lived long ago. So we're going to take a look first at our friends, the dinosaurs, learn a little bit more about them and their lives. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about fossils so that we can create our very own fossils today. So let's start with a little lesson about our dinosaurs and how long they lived, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and share this screen so that you can all learn a little bit more about dinosaurs. Here we go.
The first thing we need to understand is that people and dinosaurs never lived together. The dinosaurs lived before human beings existed, and they roamed the earth for approximately 135 million years. That's a really long time. They were the dominating vertebrates. Nowadays, more than 500 different species have been identified, thanks to bones and fossils found. All dinosaurs were oviparous, meaning they reproduced by laying eggs. But there were huge differences between them. Some were very small, while others were absolutely enormous. So as to learn about them better, we have divided them into 2 major groups, Ornithischia and Serischia. What complicated names they have! The Ornithischia, or bird-hipped dinosaurs, were herbivore, which means they only ate plants. The most well-known was the Triceratops. They were impressive, huh? The Serischia, or lizard-hipped dinosaurs, were the ancestors of the crocodiles and lizards. Among these species, they were carnivores and herbivores, and within them, the 2 most famous dinosaurs, the Diplodocus and the Tyrannosaurus. The Diplodocus was the largest dinosaur. In 1907, an entire skeleton was found measuring 27 meters. Although remains of these specimens have been found exceeding 50 meters. In these images, you can observe just how enormous they were. The Tyrannosaurus was and still is the most fearsome predator which has ever existed on our planet. It was more than 4 meters high and could be up to 12 meters in length. In its mouth, it had 60 razor-sharp pointed teeth, and it could run 65 kilometers per hour. The truth is, I would be absolutely petrified if I would come across such an animal. But wait a minute, how is it possible that such large and powerful animals completely disappeared off the face of the earth? Currently, the investigators are focusing on two big theories. The first is based on the impact of an asteroid or comet from outer space. The other theory maintains that the cause of the dinosaurs' disappearance was due to a period of enormous volcanic activity. We actually still don't really know the truth. But what we do know with absolute certainty is that right now, at this very moment, there are still many animals in great danger of being extinct and could even disappear. All of us can help them survive. How? By respecting nature, recycling, contaminating the least bit possible, buying only what we really need. If we make these efforts, we will be able to live in a much healthier planet. And we, at the same time, will be ensuring that no animal, not a single one, will ever be in danger of extinction again. Let's hope with everybody's help, we can make it. Goodbye, friends. Oh, and
Wonderful. So, we learned a little bit more about dinosaurs there, right? Where they came from, how long they were on the earth, that they never lived with humans, right? Did you all know that? That's pretty exciting, right? So we learned a lot about them, right? Now, we started to touch a little bit on fossils and what fossils are and how they're helpful to scientists and archaeologists in learning more about what the dinosaurs looked like and when they lived and how long they lived, right? So in terms of fossils, what do you think might be the most important things that a scientist could find, or what do you think might be helpful in helping them to determine what a dinosaur looked like or how long ago they lived? What do you think they're looking for in these fossils? What do you all think they might be looking for specifically? Or maybe not specifically, what do you think might be the most helpful in finding information about those dinosaurs, when they lived, how they lived, maybe what they ate? What do you think? Some of our friends mentioned maybe some dinosaur bones, right? That could be very helpful, right? Bones could be super helpful. Or what about if they found a dinosaur with plants next to it? What do you think that would tell them? What might that tell them about that dinosaur? What do you think that dinosaur might eat? What do you think, Abby?
That it ate plants instead of meat.
Exactly. That's a very good possibility, right? Especially that. Now, what do you think if they find scattered remains everywhere? What do you think about that? What might that tell us? If we found some dinosaur bones over here and some quite far away, what do you think that might tell us about that dinosaur? What might that tell us? Do you think maybe it was a big dinosaur? Maybe how big it might be? If we found, say, maybe a tailbone over here and 10 feet away, we found some part of its spine, right? Do you think that might tell us something, that maybe the dinosaur is really large, right? Maybe we then know that if, depending on how far away they are, then maybe we need to expand our search, right? That maybe there's more bones even further away. So that might give the scientists some ideas of how big these dinosaurs might be, right? Now, a fossil is technically defined as the remains or the imprint of a prehistoric organism, be it an animal or a plant, that's been preserved in a mold or a cast in the Earth's crust, most often dirt or clay, like we're going to use today. We're going to use some clay. Now, the thing about fossils, right, is that sometimes scientists and archaeologists have to dig really deep to find them. And that's a great way for us to know how old these dinosaurs are, right? So on the Earth, there's called Earth's layers, right? And so if we dig deeper and deeper and deeper, right? Depending on where these scientists find the bones under the earth, they might have a good idea of how long ago these dinosaurs lived, right? Maybe the ones closer to the top of the surface are going to tell us they were a lot younger. They lived a lot closer to us than the ones deep down under the ground, right? So today we're going to talk and see if we can figure out some interesting fossil ideas, right? So I have my fossil here, and I've gone ahead and made some imprints in here to kind of show you and see if you can guess what they might be. And you're going to do the same. So you're going to go ahead. We have our clay. If you have your clay, which I have right here, we're going to go ahead and roll that out nice and flat. That way we have something to imprint our objects into. All right, now while we do that, we're going to watch a real quick video about fossils and learn a little bit more about fossils and how exactly they're helpful to the scientists out there. So go ahead, roll out your clay while we watch a little video about our friends, the fossils.
Like buried treasure, they lie hidden from sight. Echoes of an ancient past, they whisper secrets and tell tales once lost to time. Fossils are remnants or impressions of ancient organisms that are naturally preserved in stone. While there are hundreds of fossil types, they are often grouped into two major categories: body fossils, which are the preserved remains of plants and animals, and trace fossils, which are records of an animal's behavior, such as footprints. Together, they form the fossil record, a primary account that tells the story of life on Earth through stone. Fossilization, or the process of preserving organisms in stone, can occur in countless ways. These methods are largely grouped depending on whether the organisms are altered during the fossilization process. Fossilization that does not alter a specimen can help to preserve its original form and texture. Among many methods, this group includes organisms that have been frozen, preserved in tar pits, and mummified. One special case involves trapping organisms, oftentimes insects, in amber. This process begins when an organism is covered in tree sap. The sap, or resin, forms a protective seal around the entrapped organism. Over time, the soft resin hardens and turns into amber, with the organism suspended within. This process creates a biologically inert tomb for the organism, allowing its soft tissues to be remarkably preserved. Other fossilization methods change the specimen as it is being preserved. For instance, carbonization transforms soft tissues into thin black films of carbon. In fact, countless layers of carbonized plant material create a well-known fossil fuel, coal. But one of the most common types of fossilization that changes a specimen is called per-mineralization. Per-mineralization begins when minerals from water or the ground enter the pores of dead plant or animal material. Over time, the minerals attach themselves, clinging onto cellular walls and building a crystalline network in the empty cavities. This mineralization hardens the bone and turns it into stone, thereby preserving its original structure in fossil form. When conditions are right, fossilization can preserve crucial information about an organism. Per-mineralized wood often contains enough information to identify its tree genus, and sometimes its species. Insects encased in amber have been so well preserved that their genetic material was extracted and partially sequenced. And footprints left behind by ancient hominins help paint a picture of what life was like for early human ancestors millions of years ago. With every fossil uncovered, the planet's ancient past becomes clearer, helping shape our understanding of our world today.
Wonderful. So, friends, this tells us a little bit more about our friends, the fossils, right? And how exactly they help us to identify more about the creatures that lived long ago. So, you all have your clay rolled out and ready to go now. We should each have some objects that we're going to use to create trace fossils, right? Those trace fossils, we're going to see an imprint of whatever you have here. It's going to tell us a little bit more about the fossils, about what it is, and help us to identify those objects, right? So I've created mine here. I have my fossil. I'm going to have you guess what these things might be in here. Now, I also want to take a look at yours and see what did you bring to imprint in your fossils today, in your clay. So who wants to share what they brought to put in their fossils today to see what they can create? So I see some friends, you all have some objects. So go ahead, who wants to share with me first what objects you brought to imprint in your clay today? Yes, fantastic. Our friends over here have some wonderful objects. I can see some things that they've got, but would you like to go ahead and share with me?
Carter, did you make some sticks? He
Wonderful.
put some sticks in it.
Fantastic. We've got sticks. That's great. Wonderful. Fantastic. What else do we have to imprint into our fossils today? And Mason, what did you bring to me?
We have leaves in ours
He's great.
and some sticks.
Wonderful.
And he has seashell.
Seashells.
I love seashell cookies.
Fantastic. And Abby and Mason, what did you bring with you? Oh, that's beautiful. Seashells. Fantastic. That's great. We love that. Wonderful.
Seashell too.
Seashells too.
And sticks and bags.
Fantastic. Those sound wonderful. Fantastic. And Blaine, what did you bring with you today?
Can you tell it with your words? No. He has a seashell and a plant.
Wonderful. Seashells and plants. Fantastic. Now, plants are really helpful to our scientists and our archaeologist friends because that helps tell us what kinds of plants lived back when the dinosaurs lived. So maybe millions of years from now, your fossils will be helpful to scientists in learning what kind of fauna or flora, so flora meaning flowers or fauna meaning animal life, lived around you in your area in Nicholasville, right? Telling us what lived in that area many years ago, right? Now I've gone ahead and made some trace fossil impressions into my clay, and I want to see if you can guess what they are. All right, so I'm going to hold up my fossil. Now I know it might be a little hard to see, but I want to see if you can guess what it might be. All right, now this one first. Here I've got something imprinted in there. Does anyone know what it might be? Who wants to take a guess at what this could be in my fossil here? What do you think this might be? Take a guess, take a look, think about it, see if you can figure out what it could be. Abby, do you want to take a guess? All right, Abby, go ahead.
Is it a stick?
That is a great guess. It's something similar in shape, but not quite a stick.
Is it a bottle?
That's a great guess too, Mason. Not quite, a little smaller than that, but you're on the right track, both of you. Great guesses. Do you have any other guesses as to what it could be? What do we think? It is stick-like in shape, right? It is long, but not quite as long as a stick. It's helpful in day-to-day life. You probably use them in school every day, right? To record your observations, perhaps. What do you think, Abby?
Is it a pen?
It sure is. It sure is. It's a pen, right? I have my pen right here. So there you go. And this imprint made a perfect impression, right? So that's pretty cool. Now I have another object over here. Let's see if you can guess what this one is. Now this is only a partial imprint. So this is where we have to use our detective skills, right? Scientists and archaeologists are detectives too, because they have to look at an object and see what they can find and see if they can piece together maybe what it is or things about that animal or creature or object, right? So this is a partial imprint. So let's see if you can figure out what it could be. Take a look, think about what it could be, and then give me your best guess.
Some sticks.
It looks like some sticks, right? But not quite. Maybe if we take a look at how closely they're placed, might help us, right?
A pencil?
That's a great guess, too. Not quite. Let's see if we can guess. Does anyone have an idea of what this might be? I bet you use these every day, too, but not to write. I think you use them to eat. What do you think this could be? A fork. That's exactly right. Now, this is a partial imprint of a fork, right? So we've got our 4 prongs here. Now, of course, if I had given you an impression of the full fork, it would have been much easier to guess, right? But we want to use our detective skills, right, to determine what it could be, right? Now, I have one more imprint for you today in a separate fossil. This one is pretty interesting, and I think you might know what this could be. Does anyone know what this might be? Abby, what do you think?
Paw print.
A paw print, that's exactly right. It's a paw print, right? Now, this paw print might tell us, or tell scientists, exactly what kind of creature it might be. We can see that it has 4 little claws here, right? 4 feet or toes, right? And a little paw here. So we might be able to determine what kind of creature it is just from knowing or narrow it down by the size of its paw or by the number of toes it has, right? It shows us that, how sharp its little claws are. Those are all things that might help us determine kind of what creature it might actually be, right? Now, you are all making your fossil impressions. So what you're going to do, obviously, is taking your objects, you'll press them into your clay enough to get an impression and then gently pull them out so that we can see your impressions in the clay. Now, you could also leave your objects in the clay, although I think it's kind of cool to pull them out and see something like a seashell or a leaf, what kind of impression it leaves, right? And then my question for you is, once you've made those fossil and you've seen mine, what does your imprint look like? How is it like that object? And how is it different? So what do we notice that's alike with the objects we've gathered in your clay? And what's different about the impression in your fossil than the actual object you have sitting right there? So take a look, tell me what's similar and what's different. You take a moment, make those impressions, take a look at your objects and your fossils, and compare and see what you see. What's different about our fossils than our objects, and what's the same? What do we notice that's similar, and what do we see that's different? Yes, my friends over here.
It doesn't have color.
There's no color, right? The colors are different, right? Exactly. We're not sure. When I showed you I had a pen, right? We didn't know what color it was until I held it up. And it's pink, right? So we don't get to see the color of that pen or pencil, right? We don't know for sure what color it would be. We have to kind of assume, right? Or take our best guess, right? That's great. Blaine, what else do we see that's similar or different?
So, both of the dinosaur, both of the things that made have 3 toenails.
That's right. So you have our dinosaur footprint in there, right? That dinosaur stepped hard enough to go ahead and leave his footprint in there. But of course, we just see the bottom of his paw, right? So we might not see the whole rest of his foot. So we're not sure how tall his foot is, how big it is, right? We kind of see how long it is, but maybe not how big it is, right? So that's good to know, right? What else do we notice that might be different? Yes.
It doesn't feel the same.
It doesn't feel the same, right? Absolutely. Our objects are a little more three-dimensional, right? We can hold them in our hands. Now, our fossils tend to be a little more two-dimensional, right? They have some texture and some depth, but not quite the same. And of course, our fossils, we notice, say like our pencil, we have an imprint of one side, but of course we know our pencil goes all the way around. It's three-dimensional, right? We can hold it in our hands. Whereas with our fossil, we can't really do that, right? So they definitely feel different, right? And all of the textures might not transfer from our objects to our fossils, right? We may not see all of those textures, especially if, say, we have a leaf and all of the veins are on one side, we may not get them to transfer over the other way, right? Or like with our dinosaur friends, we have the bottom of our foot, but not the top of our foot, right? So that's tough to tell exactly what they may look like until we have perhaps the rest of the bones. Maybe if we find fossilized bones, that might give us a better idea of just how big those feet might be or how big their heads might be. But if we find just kind of a fossilized trace fossil of the top of their heads or the bottom of their feet, it may not give us a full idea of just how big they might be, right? Do we notice anything that's the same about these things? What do we notice that might be the same? Or if there's anything else different that you notice. What else do we see that's the same or different? What about the shape of our objects? Do we see the shape of our objects being the same or different? What do you think?
They're the same.
They're the same, right? Absolutely. They're the same because that object is making an exact impression in our fossil, right? Or in our clay. So the shape is the same, right? The shape, the size is the same, right? It doesn't suddenly get bigger or smaller because it's in clay, right? It's exactly the same size as it was. And we can see that they match exactly, right? So it's exactly the same size, this impression, right? So that gives us a definite idea of how big it might be, right? For sure. Do we see anything else that might be the same or different? These are some great
The
options.
patterns.
Say it one more time.
The patterns.
The patterns, absolutely, right? The patterns that they have, some of that texture may definitely transfer over, right? Absolutely. So I see in my pencil here, it's tough to see, but right in the bottom there, you can see some little dots that appeared, and those appear also in this pen or pencil, right? So you can see there's some texture there that transferred over, right? Or I bet with your leaves, everyone, that you're seeing those veins, right, in your leaves that'll transfer over to your clay. So you'll see that exact impression, not only the shape of the leaf, the size of the leaf, but also where those veins are, which gives us a really good idea of what that leaf is, where it came from. So what species it is, what genus it is, we can narrow it down to where it came from, right? From Nicholasville, Kentucky, right? Or maybe just general Kentucky, depending on where it is. Those trees may be found, or maybe they're found all over the East Coast. And that's a great way to kind of narrow down where those trees are found or those leaves might be found. So it's a really great way to kind of learn a little bit more about fossils and for scientists and archaeologists to learn a lot more about the life that lived where you are, right? So those leaves and sticks and things that you've gathered are all things that are native to your area, right? So they might not be quite the same as people in California or people in another continent, say Antarctica or in South America, right? They may not find the same trees or leaves or species or sticks, things like that. They may not find the same things there. And so maybe their fossils will look different, right? In Antarctica, there's a lot of snow and ice. So maybe things are preserved in ice there, right? Versus being preserved in clay or dirt like it is on the East Coast because there's a lot of clay and dirt around here, right? So maybe our fossils will even be preserved differently, right? And those are some really cool things to know. So fossils look different all around the world. And so do the things that are preserved in fossils, right? Different dinosaurs lived in different areas of the world, which is how scientists know where they lived, what kind of climates they may have lived in, right? So if we find them, say, in South America, the climates are different there. It tends to be a little warmer, right, in South America than it does here. right? Especially during certain times of the year. Or if dinosaurs are found close to the equator, that's when it gets hotter there, right? Versus as you get lower or higher where it gets colder, right? So if you find a dinosaur closer to the equator or the center of the earth, we know maybe they liked a hotter climate than if you find them in, say, Antarctica, where it's pretty cold all year round, right? So that might tell us a lot about where that dinosaur lived and what they needed to survive, right? Those are all some really cool things that you can learn about fossils. Now, you may even find some fossils in your own backyard if you do enough digging, right? You never know. Maybe there are some fossils preserved low under the ground. Maybe you'll find some different plants or some shells, maybe some different kinds of materials that have lived over the years that have been buried. And maybe that'll give you a really good idea of people who lived there even before you did, right? Now, do we have any questions about our dinosaurs, about our fossils? I would love to, or just about science in general, or archaeologists, or anything you'd like to ask me about Miss Frizzle or about my magic school bus. You could ask me anything you'd like. And if you don't have any questions, that's all right too. You can think about it. You can always write me a letter, and I'll be back again. We're going to talk about outer space next time. And I hope you'll join me for that one, because that one is my favorite. I don't know if you can tell. My favorite, I have Earth here, my stars, and of course, I have our friend, the sun, on my dress. So outer space is one of my favorite topics, and I'm really excited to learn with you about outer space. So does anyone have any questions about fossils or any other observations about dinosaurs or fossils that we've learned today, or things you learned that you didn't know that you want to share, that you were excited to learn about? Yes, go ahead, my friends.
How do they know where to look for the dinosaur bones?
That is a great question. So, early archaeologists weren't sure exactly. They had to do a lot of trial and error, a lot of digging and guessing, right? Now, archaeologists today have a better idea of how to find those dinosaur bones and fossils by looking where other archaeologists found dinosaur bones and fossils, right? So, if one archaeologist found bones, say, in this area over here, they know that that's probably a pretty good place to start to look for some other bones and fossils. And so then they can expand their search in that area and see what else they can find. Sometimes they'll find something really close by, and sometimes it may be a while. But usually that's a pretty good idea of where to start their looking and their search. That is a great question. It's a great question. Do we have any other questions or observations or things that you learned that you didn't know that you want to share, that you were excited to learn about today? Did we have fun making our fossils today? Fantastic. Can I see your fossils? I would love to see them. Let me see what you created. Abby, go ahead and show me. I saw you had some beautiful leaves in there. I'd love to see the impressions that they made. Look at how beautiful. That looks amazing. Now, Abby, what happens if you pull one of those leaves out of your thing so that we can see the impression of that fossil, which makes it a trace fossil, right? What happens? That looks amazing, Mason. I love that. Go ahead and pull that one leaf out there, Abby, if you want to leave some of them in, or pull one of those seashells out and see what impression it makes. That way you can see what it left behind, right? Look at that. That looks amazing. Oh my goodness. I love that. I see lots of sticks there. Those are fantastic. Wonderful. Amazing work. Fantastic. Look at those. And I see some leaves in there. There you go, Abby. Look. So now you see, can you see in there? I see the spines and the veins of that leaf there that left an impression. And that's a really good guess as to how big and what kind of leaf that might be, right? That's pretty amazing, don't you think? And Mason, yours looks amazing too. Look at that. I love that we've made some we've made some impressions with the bottom of our pen. And I see some sticks. That's fantastic. And a seashell in there. I love that. Well done, everybody, today. These look fantastic. Now, again, if you think of any other questions that you have for me, you can feel free to write me a letter, or you can come back and join me on our trip to outer space, which is going to be a blast, pun intended. And we're going to have a great time learning about space and the solar system and planets. It's one of my favorite topics, so I think we're going to have a really great time with that one. And if you think of any questions about fossils or dinosaurs in the meantime, either write them down and send me a letter, or hold them on, lock them in your brain, and then you can come back when we start our outer space, and we can start with questions about dinosaurs and fossils before you move on to space. How does that sound, everyone? Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me today on our lesson to the past with dinosaurs and fossils. I hope that you had as much fun as I did today. And I hope that you continue to look for fossils and objects in your own backyard. Yes, Abby.
Can't wait to come back.
I'm so glad to hear that. I am so excited to see you again as we learn about space together. Now, don't forget to keep learning, keep investigating, see what you can find out there in the world, right? Right in your own backyard. There is science and things to be discovered right there in your own backyard. So I hope you have a wonderful, fantastic rest of your day. And I can't wait to see you all again soon. So enjoy those fossils and we'll see each other again. So thank you
Thanks,
so much for
guys.
tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you all soon, all right? So long, friends. Bye, everyone.